Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Martial Universe Season 6 based on novel. So let's start. In the air, Songjin was dumbstruck as he stared at Lin Dong, who gave a brilliant smile in response. Songjin's entire body was filled with a chilly sensation. His finger trembled as he pointed at Lin Dong, while an intense astonishment surged through his eyes. You actually devoured my swallowing power. Songjin finally completed his sentence after a long time. His voice contained an unconcealable astonishment. He could not believe that not only did his mythical beast's swallowing power not do any damage to Lin Dong, but it was instead completely devoured by Lin Dong. The swallowing power was known to be able to swallow any living things in this world. Anything that fell within it would be digested. However, not only did it fail to digest Lin Dong, it was instead devoured by Lin Dong through some unknown method. Songjin was absolutely dumbstruck by this scene. Gasp! Numerous gasps broke out in the surrounding area. The onlookers stared at Lin Dong as if they had seen a ghost. The swallowing power of the vicious Dao Tai might be strong, but the inheritance that you obtained is nothing compared to the genuine article. Therefore, it's not difficult to overcome it. Lin Dong laughed mockingly as numerous shocking gazes focused on him. He then continued, I'm afraid the Dao Tai sect's inheritance will lose 30% of its power after losing the swallowing power. From Songjin's perspective, the loss of the swallowing power was akin to him cutting off one of his limbs, and it could be said that he had brought this upon himself. If he kept to his plan of using his martial art for offense, it would take Lin Dong quite a while to defeat him. However, in the end, he chose to show off the swallowing power that he obtained from the Dao Tai sect in hopes of finishing Lin Dong off in one go. If Lin Dong was any ordinary individual, he would be digested into nothingness after falling into the stomach of darkness. However, he possessed the devouring ancestral symbol. As such, he did not find the Dao Tai beast's swallowing power to be as frightening as everyone else imagined it to be. Therefore, when Lin Dong fell into the stomach of darkness, he immediately activated the devouring ancestral symbol, and devouring power spread outwards. Eventually, the stomach of darkness and the swallowing power that filled it were completely devoured. In the battle between these two unique powers, devouring power had completely gained the upper hand. Hence, not only did Lin Dong easily counter Songjin's killer move, he was also able to cause the latter to lose his most powerful weapon, swallowing power. Bastard, return me my swallowing power. The rigid smile on Songjin's face looked extremely comical. After a moment, his face suddenly turned distorted and malevolent. With a roar, his body charged forward. Swish swish. Several shadows appeared in the air. Following which, a powerful trident force materialized into a sky of shadows that engulfed Lin Dong like a torrential rain. Dao Tai Devil Trident. As the shadows descended from the sky, they gathered together at a terrifying speed, transforming into a black flash. Accompanied by a horrifying energy wave, the black flash violently thrust towards Lin Dong's skull. As the black flash flickered, there seemed to be an ancient roar emerging from within. However, Lin Dong merely sneered upon seeing such a violent and raging attack from Songjin. With no indications of dodging the attack, the Yuan power in his body surged frantically. With a jerk of his arm, his bone spear flew. The flying bone spear did not have a spectacular flying trajectory. However, the boundless Yuan power that it carried was so solid it was almost real and filled with an astonishing destructive power. Tick! When the bone spear made contact with the trident, a crisp metallic sound was heard. Following which, a brutal gale swept out from the point of contact, creating violent ripples through the air. Without swallowing power, the Dao Tai sect's martial art seems to be rather weak. A smirk flashed across Lin Dong's face. He could sense that Songjin's offense had lost a part of its soul. Even though his offense appeared vigorous like before, it was no longer hard to deal with. Songjin's face was twisted. He brandished the trident wildly as a terrifying gale blasted towards Lin Dong. It looked as if Songjin was going to go crazy. Looks like the loss of the swallowing power had dealt a huge blow to him. Even though his attacks were brutal and ferocious, Lin Dong was able to stop them completely. Moreover, signs of chaos and disorder started to appear in between Songjin's attacks. Songjin is really reckless now, Lei Ning softly said. Her beautiful eyes focused slightly as she witnessed this scene. During a battle, a practitioner's mental state was especially important. By attacking recklessly, one would reveal his or her weaknesses, and eventually, he or she would be killed by his or her opponent. Right now, Songjin was behaving in such a way. Lin Dong's power is rather strange. To think that he was actually deal with the Taotie's swallowing power. Qing Feng replied with a serious look on his face. The swallowing power might be powerful, but it's not invincible. There are countless unique powers in this world. What Songjin had was merely one of these many powers. Hence, it's not surprising that his swallowing power can be countered. Of course, the tricks up Lin Dong's sleeves are rather powerful as well. Lei Ning then continued softly, after all, he's only at the 4 yuan nirvana stage. Right now, what do you think are the odds of Lin Dong winning the fight? Qing Feng asked. If you ask me this question at the start of this battle, I would have said he had a 40% chance of winning. However, right now, I'm afraid he has a 60% chance of winning or even higher, Lei Ning muttered. Qing Feng slightly nodded his head while shock flashed across his eyes. With his 4 yuan nirvana stage strength, Lin Dong had 60% chance of defeating a 5 yuan nirvana stage practitioner. Was this guy truly that fearsome? Furthermore, Lin Dong's counterparts have also gained the upper hand in the other two battlefronts. Lei Ning shifted her beautiful eyes and looked at Little Martin's and Little Flame's battles. Her face was especially serious when she saw Little Martin's battle. The one called Lin Diao is extremely powerful. On the surface, he might even be stronger than Lin Dong. Look at Song Qiu. He has been completely suppressed since the start of the battle. As for the muscular Lin Yang, even though he is not having an easy time, his infernal aura makes Song Ba's limbs tremble. The Lin Dong trio is indeed not simple. Upon hearing these words, Qing Feng shifted his gaze and nodded his head solemnly. He no longer dared to underestimate the trio. Their strength was comparable to the Song Devils. If Lin Dong and his counterparts could defeat the Song Devils, that would mean they were qualified to be on an equal footing as Lei Ning and Qing Feng himself. Their names would definitely be on the Nirvana Golden ranking. Clink clink clink. The spear and the trident crossed swords at lightning speed, while sparks flew in all directions. It was clear that Lin Dong and Songjin were fighting with zeal and anger. Their attacks were extremely fast and ruthless. Most of their attacks were targeted at each other's vital points. If one was to be hit by one of those attacks, a serious injury was inevitable. Clink. Another ferocious collision took place as a violent energy wave swept across the area. Enormous cracks appeared on the ground below both parties, as they were knocked back by the resultant force. Swoosh. After both of them were knocked back, Lin Dong's facial expression suddenly turned ice-cold. Boundless yuan power gushed out from his body and formed 5 giant ancient fingers. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. An icy glint flashed across Lin Dong's eyes. With a bellow, 5 giant ancient fingers quickly gathered to become an enormous ancient hand. As the enormous ancient hand appeared, a figure of nothingness appeared in this space. Lin Dong did not stop after he successfully formed the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. A green glow burst out from his body and charged right into the enormous hand. Buzz buzz. After the entry of the green glow, numerous huge green dragon scales grew on the enormous ancient hand. In a blink of an eye, the enormous ancient hand had become a green scaly hand. Boom. Lin Dong's eyes were piercing cold. Without any hesitation, he clenched his fist, and the enormous ancient hand imbued with the heavenly dragon aura ripped through the air and smacked down onto Songjin. Bang bang bang. As the enormous green-scaled hand whizzed downward, the earth instantly cracked open. The onlookers who stood too close to the battle were knocked backwards, as they spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. As Songjin watched the enormous incoming green-scaled hand, his facial expression became extremely grim. He could feel an intense danger from the hand. Buzz. Doutai Devil Armor. A bright black glow frantically gushed out and twirled around Songjin's body. The dark glow solidified rapidly and eventually formed a black armor. A dark aura surrounded the armor, which gave off waves of energy. Boom. As the devil armor was formed, the enormous green-scaled hand was already on its way down. Finally, under the numerous gazes from the onlookers, the hand ruthlessly smacked down onto Songjin. Bang. Accompanied by a huge bang, an earth-shattering dark glow erupted from the armor on Songjin's body. His body flew back from the impact in a sorry state. The dark aura quickly congregated and formed numerous dark mouths that absorbed the tremendous impact. Ha ha, even though I've lost the swallowing power, you still can't kill me. As the numerous dark mouths disappeared, Songjin's body stabilized while still several feet from the ground, before he raised his head and chuckled sinisterly. Is that so? The corners of Lin Dong's mouth curled up. Suddenly, he forcefully pressed both his palms onto the ground. Bang! The ground beneath Songjin suddenly weirdly split in a strange manner. Under numerous shocking gazes from the onlookers, torrential dark light erupted from the crevice and materialized into a huge mouth of darkness. Within the huge mouth, there appeared to be a black hole of unfathomable depths. Songjin's pupils shrunk when he saw the huge mouth of darkness that abruptly formed below his feet. Heaven-devouring mouth. Lin Dong's facial expression was ice-cold. As he clenched his fist, the mouth of darkness whizzed upwards and swallowed the petrified Songjin. Now, I will let you have a taste of my heaven-devouring mouth. As darkness filled Songjin's eyes, he heard Lin Dong's cold and indifferent voice. A giant mouth of darkness broke out from the ground and swallowed Songjin's body at a shocking speed, in front of numerous terrified gazes. Sizzle sizzle. Songjin disappeared immediately after his body was being swallowed. Only a large cluster of strange black light wiggled in midair. Meanwhile, a heart-palpitating energy faintly scattered out from within. Heaven-devouring mouth. The surroundings of the messy rocky ground was silent for a second before everyone finally recovered. Immediately, they let out a sharp scream. They had seen Songjin's powerful attack before. However, they were unable to imagine that Lin Dong was also able to use a similar move. How is this possible? Amidst the commotion, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. How could Lin Dong use this martial art that belonged to the Taozong sect? What is going on? Feng Qing, who was seated on the large rock, also had a shocked expression. His eyes locked onto that wiggling black light. Songjin's aura had disappeared immediately ever since he was swallowed. It was as though he had been swallowed into the black stomach. Lei Ning's pretty face was similarly filled with a stunned expression. She frowned slightly and muttered, the heaven-devouring mouth that Lin Dong used might be the same as the one Songjin displayed. However, its ripple is extremely obscure. It is likely because he forcefully snatched away Songjin's swallowing strength. How is it possible for Lin Dong to snatch Songjin's swallowing strength? Even we cannot do that. Song Qing muttered to himself. We might not be able to do it, but that does not mean that others cannot as well. Lin Dong is not a simple person, Lin Ying said. Feng Qing could no longer remain noncommittal in face of these words from Lan Ying. Lin Dong was able to force Songjin until such an extent. This was already sufficient to prove that he was capable. If he could really defeat Songjin, there would be no more than 5 people in the entire Golden Nirvana ranking who could defeat him. In other words, the current Lin Dong would more or less have the qualifications to be ranked as the top 5 members of the 100 Empire War. Given his background from a low-rank empire, being able to reach such a stage would be truly quite terrifying. Bang! A miserable figure shot backwards from a battleground a short distance from the messy rocky area. After which, he forcefully stabilized its body around 5 feet in front of a large rock. A terrifying strength spread out from within his body, and directly shattered the large rock behind it. A groan was also emitted from his mouth. Clearly he had suffered some injuries. Is that all you can do? A ghost-like figure appeared in the mid-air, and looked down at the man, who had groaned and retreated below. The figure laughed faintly. His handsome face had an expression of ridicule. The person with the handsome appearance was naturally little Martin, while that miserable person was Song Q, who was fighting with him. Since the very beginning, little Martin had gotten the upper hand. In fact, Song Q no longer harbored any intentions of winning. Instead, he merely wanted to tie little Martin down. Song Q clearly understood the extent of little Martin's strength after their fight. Comparatively speaking, he knew that he was weaker than little Martin. Furthermore, the latter had various peculiar tactics, and he was extremely ruthless. Therefore, it was simply impossible for him to defeat such an opponent alone. A steely green expression emerged on his face when Song Q heard little Martin ridicule. However, he could only grit his teeth and swallow his anger at this moment. Once Big Brother finishes off that brat, he will be able to free himself. At that time, both of us will join forces. Regardless of how unusual this person is, he would definitely end up dying. Song Q rubbed away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. After which, his eyes swiftly drifted towards the battleground of Lin Dong. When he saw Songjin being swallowed by the large black mouth, the fearsome expression on his face suddenly solidified. He looked just like a clown, appearing exceptionally comical. Looks like there is no hope for your final life-saving straw, little Martin mocked. That brat actually wants to trap my big brother with his strength. He must be out of his mind. Song Q spoke sternly. However, shock flashed across his eyes. This proved that he was feeling uncertain in his heart. However, little Martin was too lazy to be bothered about this. His eyes looked towards the black light. Even he felt quite surprised that Lin Dong was actually able to force Songjin till such a sorry extent in such a short period of time. At the same time, some of the other battlegrounds, including that of Shuiying and the others, had also sensed this commotion. After which, their faces also quickly turned much paler instantly. So powerful. Compared to the pale white faces of Shuiying's group, a wild joy and shocked expression surged up the faces of Liu Bai's group. It was a long while later before they said these 2 words with some difficulty. The battle between Lin Dong and Songjin could be said to be full of ups and downs. From the initial disadvantage, Lin Dong had currently firmly obtained the upper hand. Songjin, who had acted in a mighty fashion previously, had now been reduced into an extremely miserable state. With regards to the shocked gazes surrounding him, Lin Dong acted as though he did not see them. His eyes were staring firmly at the squirming black light in midair. Though others might not be aware of it, he clearly understood that the thing hidden within this black light was not some swallowing strength. Instead, it was genuine devouring strength. Lin Dong had only purposefully used a method similar to the swallowing strength in order not to expose the existence of his devouring ancestral symbol. Moreover, the ripples between the two were also somewhat similar. Therefore, it was easy for him to replicate the move. Bang bang. Under the focus of Lin Dong, the black light that wrapped around Songjin suddenly began to shake intensely. It looked as though there was something within it that was struggling wildly. Lin Dong's eyes remained indifferent, and he did not make any unnecessary move. The wiggling of that black light became increasingly intense, and the devouring strength was permeated within was wildly being emitted. Boom boom boom. Songjin, who was swallowed by it, had clearly showed some traces of going crazy. A terrifying attack erupted within the black light. One could even hear his furious roar being vaguely emitted. The expressions of quite a number of people changed slightly upon hearing Songjin's roar. That roar contained a feeling of having met with a dead end. Could it be that heaven-devouring mouth that Lin Dong had used was really so troublesome to the point that even Songjin was unable to escape? Some handprints were continuously surfacing on the black light. Everyone could sense the hysteria attitude of the person within it. Boom. However, it must be said that Songjin's actual strength was quite strong. Even though he had landed in this dangerous state, his wild all-out effort had caused numerous crack lines to actually be formed on this dense, seemingly unbreakable black light. Those crack lines spread swiftly. Finally, they completely spread apart. At the same time, numerous light figures also erupted out from within at a lightning-like speed. They panted as they paused in the mid-air. Their expressions were pale white as their eyes became as ferocious as an evil ghost. He has come out. Numerous exclamations erupted from the surroundings of the messy rocky area, as everyone looked at Songjin, who had broken the black light. Song Q, Shui Ying and the rest sighed in relief, appearing as though they had been relieved of a great burden. It looks like you have really thought too much. Song Q smiled ferociously as he looked at little Martin before speaking. Is that so? Little Martin lifted his eyebrows. His face contained a playful smile. Song Q's heart immediately sunk when he saw this smile of the other party. At this juncture, Songjin, who had emerged from the black light, was staring viciously right at Lin Dong. His expression was so pernicious that words could not describe it properly. Swoosh. Songjin did not utter any unnecessary words, as his figure directly rushed out. An incomparably ferocious palm wind slammed furiously towards the waiting Lin Dong from all directions. However, Lin Dong did not do anything in the face of this attack by Songjin. He slowly shook his head as his eyes looked at a fearsome-looking Songjin with indifference. After which, he gently raised his hand and gently collided with Songjin's palm wind. Bam! A clear sound was emitted. However, the expected shocking forceful fluctuation did not appear. Songjin's seemingly ferocious palm wind had completely scattered when it made contact with Lin Dong's hand. Is there still any strength left within your body? Lin Dong raised his head. He looked at the savage face that was within close proximity. It was possible for him to detect that torrent-like fear that surged out from deep within the other party's eyes. After which, he smiled slightly. The terrifying strength on his palm erupted instantly. Crack! The sound of bones cracking resounded over this chaotic rocky ground in an ear-piercing manner instantly. The sound of bones cracking sounded out in the messy rock ground. Instantly, all the chaos and noise died down, as everyone turned to look at the center of the ground. In the central area of the messy rock ground, there were two figures, one up in the air and one down below, who had just crossed blows. Songjin's body was hovering in mid-air, as he extended his right palm. However, he was firmly stopped by Lin Dong's hand. The sound of bones cracking had emerged from this spot. Whose bone had been broken? This thought flashed past everyone's minds. All of them knew that the victor was probably going to emerge soon. Therefore, none of them dared to even blink their eyes. Ha! Amidst the silence, Lin Dong's elegant figure suddenly shifted. Promptly, an icy cold smile slowly emerged on his face. Meanwhile, there was a rich killing intent flowing within his smile. After he smiled, Lin Dong suddenly took a step forward. His palm was just like an eagle claw, as he tightly gripped onto Song Jing's wrist. Following which, with a jerk of his arm, a massive force immediately uprooted Song Jing forcefully. After a swirl in mid-air, Lin Dong finally slammed him viciously against a large rock in front of the crowd's bewildered eyes. Boom! A deep and heart-palpitating echo, which was produced when his body slammed against that large rock, sounded out across the arena. Immediately, that large rock exploded in bits, while gravel flew everywhere. Buzz! Chi! That terrifying impact unreservedly gushed into Song Jing's body. Instantly, he felt as if all the organs in his body had shifted due to that impact, as he vomited out a mouthful of fresh blood. Boom! However, just as his body landed, Lin Dong's cold face once again appeared in front of him. There seemed to be a coldness of unfathomable depth gushing out from his eyes. Swoosh! Maintaining his tight grip on Song Jin's wrist, Lin Dong pursed his lips before he dragged Song Jin and ran off. Following which, he viciously flung him those large rocks nearby. Bang! 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 In the arena, large rocks continuously exploded. Lin Dong continued to grip onto Song Jin and use his body like a bat. In an extremely domineering fashion, he flung Song Jin against those large rocks. TSSS. Everyone in the messy rock ground seemed to have slowed down. As they stared at a helpless Song Jin, all of them involuntarily exhaled a breath of cold air as shock permeated their eyes. All of them were simply unable to believe that a top-tier individual who originated from one of the 10 great super empires and had obtained the inheritance of Taozong would actually lose to Lin Dong in such a devastating fashion. Gulp. Qingfeng's throat rolled, while he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Glancing at Lin Dong's blood-stained hands, he turned to find a feeble Song Jin only to discover an expressionless Lin Dong. Suddenly, for no particular reason, a coldness surged up across his entire body. This fellow is truly terrifying. Song Jin has really lost. Lei Ning softly sighed with a complicated expression on her face. Though she could sense Song Jin's feeble aura, she did not know why Song Jin would suddenly lose all means of resistance. Evidently, this must be one of Lin Dong's peculiar tactics. Furthermore, even she felt fearful of this tactic. The instant this battle ended, Shui Ying and the rest were all in shock as they stared at this scene. Meanwhile, their pale faces turned increasingly pale. This outcome had completely exceeded everyone's expectations. After all, it was impossible for them to imagine that Song Jin would actually be defeated. Furthermore, he lost so devastating to a 4-yuan Nirvana stage member from a low-rank empire. Is that fellow so powerful? Fear was faintly flowing within their eyes when Shui Ying and the rest saw how Lin Dong casually abused Song Jin's body like a weapon. His exceptional rage and violence caused their hearts to shiver. Big brother. Song Q and Song Ba were also stunned by this scene. However, they promptly recovered their senses. Immediately, rage surged into their eyes, before their figures flashed as they attempted to rescue him. I have played with you for long enough. Guess it's time to end it. Just as Song Q was about to make a move, a phantom-like figure mysteriously appeared in front of him. When he saw that smiling beautiful face, Song Q's pupils immediately shrunk. Swoosh! Little Martin leaned forward before he instantly closed the gap between him and Song Q's body. Following which, a palm filled with a dark purple glow faintly transformed into a black claw. With a loud swoosh, it tore through the sky. Before Song Q had the time to react, that icy cold palm had already solidly slammed against his palm. Buzz chi. Song Q's body solidified. In the next instant, his body instantly flew out as he vomited blood. Finally, he landed hideously on the ground and no one knew if he was still alive. Second brother. Song Ba, who had already taken a few steps forward, immediately exclaimed in shock when he saw this sight. Godly transformation, sky demonic claw. However, before Song Ba could finish his sentence, a deep tiger growl filled with a savage killing intent sounded out from behind him. Following which, a terrifying shockwind swept forth from behind and encapsulated him. When he felt that savage shockwind, Song Ba's expression drastically changed. As he quickly turned around, a resplendent golden glow quickly agglomerated. In a blink of an eye, it has transformed into a sturdy golden shield. Clang! After that golden shield materialized, a large and black tiger claw quickly arrived. Without a shred of hesitation, it carried a savage killing intent as it directly slammed against that shield. Clang! A terrifying aftershock swept forth as a black light ran amok in the sky. However, to Song Ba's bewilderment, cracks began to swiftly appear on that golden shield. As those cracks rapidly grew, in mere seconds, they had reached their limits. Finally, that golden shield exploded with a loud bang. Dong! The instant that shield exploded, Song Ba, who was standing behind it, had lost his final line of defense. As that black tiger claw swept forth, with a single swipe, his entire body was viciously flung deep into the ground. As the ground collapsed, a giant ditch appeared. Meanwhile, Song Ba was directly buried in that deep ditch. Boom! A muscular figure that seemed just like the devil landed beside the ditch. Little Flame, who was slightly wounded, wiped off the blood stains on his face. With a savage glint in his eyes, his arms stretched out before he directly pulled out an unconscious Song Ba. When the surrounding crowds saw this sight, they instantly turned silent. In mere seconds, 2 of the 3 Song Devils have been instantly defeated. Incorrect. Perhaps all 3 of them have been defeated. Immediately, all of their attention quietly shifted. Dust filled the arena, while all the large rocks nearby have been blasted apart by Lin Dong. Of course, the weapon he used was Song Zhen's physical body. Amidst the dust, a figure slowly emerged. However, his soft footsteps caused several people's heart to tremble. That man finally emerged from the dust, and that elegant figure naturally belonged to Lin Dong. Right now, there was a gentle smile on his face, while his hands were covered with blood. Following which, he dragged a slightly twisted figure as he slowly walked out. Anywhere he walked past, a blood trail will follow, and it was extremely eye-catching. After he emerged from the dust, Lin Dong swung his arm before he directly tossed that blooded figure away, just like a piece of garbage. Dong! The deep sound of that man landing in the arena seemed to have directly struck everyone's heart, and caused their bodies to violently tremble. Is that really the boss of the 3 Song Devils, Song Zhen? In the messy rock ground, everyone stared at that bloody figure, before they turned to look at the smile on Lin Dong's face. Immediately, a chilling sensation arose in their hearts. That fellow was simply too vicious, and he actually beat up a 5-yuan Nirvana stage practitioner till such a horrifying state. Still up for a fight? Lin Dong lifted his head as he stared at Shui Ying and the rest, who had pale expressions on their faces, before he laughed and asked. Lin Dong's smile was fairly congenial. However, to Shui Ying and the rest, he looked just like the devil. Immediately, their faces turned deathly white. Any resistance in their hearts have been completely crushed the instant Lin Dong tossed out that bloody figure. If you are not going to fight, surrender your Nirvana seals. Then, scram. Shui Ying's and the rest's expressions were in flux. However, eventually their eyes dimmed down. All of them understood that this time around, they had lost completely. Lin Dong's group won. On top of a large rock, Lei Ning heaved a deep sigh of relief. Meanwhile, a peculiar glint flashed across her eyes, as she softly muttered. The three Song Devils have actually lost. The Lin Dong trio will definitely ascend in the Nirvana Golden ranking, and become the most dazzling individuals in the ancient battlefield. Lei Ning lifted her head as she stared at the 100 Empire Mountain that extended into the clouds. It is likely that even those super sects that were keenly observing this fight would be shocked by this result. The atmosphere around the messy rocky ground was completely silent. Even the air itself faintly showed signs of solidifying. A rich bloody scent was scattering over from the coagulation. The three Song Devils have been completely defeated. As they looked at the three miserable-looking figures in the arena, everyone knew that this earth-shaking battle has ended. Lin Dong slowly stepped forward in front of the completely silent crowd. When he reached Songjin's body, he bent down and prized apart his hand. Immediately, a purple gold-colored Nirvana seal appeared. Quite a number of people around drooled when they saw that purple gold-colored Nirvana seal. As long as they were able to obtain this, they would gain the qualifications to advance into the Nirvana Golden ranking. Of course, despite their desire, no one really dared to do anything. Even those powerful three devils from the Song clan have been defeated by Lin Dong's group. Hence, which ordinary expert would dare to challenge them? Lin Dong, you actually dare to offend my Sky Devil Empire. You are courting death. I might not be able to do anything to you in this ancient dimension, but once we leave this place, the strength of my Sky Demon Empire is sufficient to crush you into a pulp. Songjin was really hardy. Even though he had been thoroughly thrashed by Lin Dong to such a miserable state, he was still able to live. His incomparably weak and vicious eyes stared at Lin Dong as he panted. Lin Dong's expression was indifferent. He ignored Songjin and directly grabbed the latter's hand. After which, he took his Nirvana seal. Light surged as he unceremoniously absorbed all his purple gold Nirvana seal. Swoosh! After Lin Dong absorbed Songjin's purple gold Nirvana seal, his Nirvana seal, which originally held some purple gold luster, immediately released a purple glow. The light became increasingly dense, before finally completely transforming into a purple gold color. At this moment, Lin Dong had officially stepped into the Nirvana Golden ranking. Lin Dong. Just you wait. After we leave this ancient domain, I will make sure you die miserably. Song Qing was extremely furious when he saw this. His face, which was already covered with fresh blood, appeared even more terrifyingly distorted. However, he did not have any strength left to fight with Lin Dong currently. Hence, he could only roar out in rage, while his eyes were filled with rich viciousness. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at the screaming Songjin. The latter's cry immediately came to a halt. Songjin had sensed a true killing intent from Lin Dong's eyes. Since you have repeatedly reminded me to get rid of the root of my problems, it seems like you might be a little disappointed if I do not act as you say. Lin Dong smiled. However, his smile revealed a chilling aura. Swoosh! Lin Dong did not give Songjin any time to react after uttering those words. He clenched his hand before his heavenly crocodile bone spear quickly appeared. It directly transformed into a chilly glint that ruthlessly pierced towards Songjin's throat. The chilling glow was magnified in Songjin's eyes. A shocked expression also appeared with his eyes. Clearly, he did not expect that Lin Dong would disregard the fact that he came from a super empire and actually attack him directly. Regardless of how shocked he currently was, he did not possess any ability to retaliate against Lin Dong. Hence, All he could do was look at the cold glow, which had instantly arrived, with a terrified expression. Clang! However, Lin Dong's eyes suddenly shrunk, just when the tip of the spear that contained a gold glow pierced towards Songjin. A light suddenly tore through space, before colliding against the tip of the spear with lightning-like speed. Waves after waves of extremely powerful force erupted. It actually forcefully shook Lin Dong's bone spear until it moved. Kai! The tip of the spear cut across Songjin's face, leaving behind a deep bloody scar. After which, it violently tore 100 feet large gully on the ground. Lin Dong was expressionless as he glanced at Songjin, who was screeching while covering his face with his hands. After which, he lifted his head. His tone was indifferent. This is a grudge between us and the Sky Demon Empire. May I know which friend wished to intervene? Swoosh swoosh. Everyone's attention suddenly shifted, before they finally paused at a gigantic tree not far away. 3 figures appeared at that spot. The person in front looked like a young man. He was wearing white clothes and there seemed to be an image of a rising sun on his white clothes. That man was tall and he looked quite handsome. He stood with his hands behind his back, and there was a unique aura flowing from him. 2 men with lazy expressions also stood behind this white-clothed man. Their clothes also had a large rising sun image. It was likely that they came from the same empire. Is that Qianyuan Empire's Qin Qian? The surroundings erupted into numerous exclamations that contained a great shock when the 3 of them appeared. Lin Dong could hear an extremely dense respect from within their voices. Qianyuan Empire. Lin Dong dilated his eyes. His expression became much more solemn. Qianyuan Empire was ranked number 1 amongst the 10 super empires. Even Qin Qian was attracted by it. Laning's group, who was situated on another large rock, frowned slightly upon seeing this. Their eyes, however, contained a rich fear. This friend, Songjin's group, had already been defeated. I think that it's best for one not to go overboard in anything one does. What do you think? Qin Qian stared at Lin Dong and spoke with a faint smile. Qin Qian gave off an extraordinary aura, and there was a convincing spirit contained within his words. It seemed like he was someone whom everyone regularly looked up to. Although he phrased his words as a question, Lin Dong did not hear a slightly conciliatory tone in his words. Instead, it sounded more like a command. Lin Dong's eyes flashed. As he gripped his palm, he immediately withdrew his bone spear. Although he was unhappy with Qin Qian's tone, there was no need for him to clash with the latter. Qianyuan Empire was the strongest of the 10 super empires, and his strength would definitely be quite terrifying. Take their Nirvana seals. Lin Dong turned his head towards Little Martin and spoke faintly. Little Martin lazily glanced at Qin Qian's group upon hearing this. After which, he ceased speaking any further. He turned around and took the Nirvana seals of Song Q's group. All of you, could you also not do this on account of the Qianyuan Empire and me? Ha ha, after all, it is not easy for them to obtain their purple gold-colored Nirvana golden seals. However, just as Little Martin moved, Qin Qian's eyes flashed. He mused for a moment before speaking. Everyone around turned quiet after he spoke. It was extremely common for one to have their Nirvana seals taken after being defeated, and no one would think that this was overboard. That was because Nirvana seal was the reward for the victor. Although everyone understood this rule within their hearts, no one dared to oppose when they saw that the one who had spoken was the leader of the most powerful empire in this ancient battlefield, Qianyuan Empire. Liu Bai's group had a somewhat ugly expression. They hesitated for a moment before they turned to look at Lin Dong, clearly awaiting his decision. Lin Dong's expression did not change much despite the attention. In fact, his eyes did not have a single shred of anger. He turned his head, looked towards the giant three and asked in a calm voice, "If we were defeated today, do you think that Songjian's group would show mercy and not snatch our Nirvana seals? Not only would they snatch your Nirvana seals, most likely, you will be killed as well." This was likely the common thought in the minds of quite a number of people around. Qin Qian looked down at Lin Dong from above, with his hands behind his back. With a faint smile, he said, "Although Songjian's group acts in an arrogant fashion, they are likely not unreasonable people." Nonsense. Some people parted their mouths. His words could only fool a child. Lin Dong smiled and shook his head. He clearly felt that the other party's words were extremely comical. Therefore, he did not plan to bother with them. He looked towards Liu Bai's group and waved his hand. "Do it, collect your reward." Standing on the large tree, Qin Qian grinned before he shook his head with a soft sigh. Swoosh! A human figure behind Qin Qian laughed in a strange manner, just as the latter was shaking his head. That figure rushed out with a swoosh sound and appeared in front of Lin Dong in a flash. A chilly glow surged on the tip of the latter's finger. It had a densely cold strength permeating over it as it mercilessly pressed towards Lin Dong's forehead. Lin Dong's expression turned slightly cold when he saw this fellow attack as he pleased. However, before he could act, little Martin appeared in front of him. He also pressed his finger forward without saying a word. Boom! Those two fingers that contained a shocking strength collided in the midair. Waves after waves of powerful storm spread apart. After which, it directly shook the ground, forming over a dozen large crack lines. Rippling strength spread apart. That figure immediately shot backwards. His toes pressed on the air before landing back on the giant tree. His original mocking expression had become a lot more serious. Little Martin's body did not move. His pretty face contained a faint chill as he glanced at the person who had attacked earlier. After which, he turned towards Qin Qian, parted his mouth and spoke in a dense manner, "I will accompany you if you wish to fight. I do not feel you are deserving of any respect. Go and take the Nirvana seals. Grandpa Martin shall see who dares to continue speaking nonsense." Little Martin turned his head and cried out coldly towards Liu Bai's group. Liu Bai's group was stunned when they saw little Martin's actions. It was the first time that Su Kuei, Mo Ling and the rest had seen the usually lazy little Martin act in such a forceful and overbearing manner. He completely did not give this Qianyuan Empire face. However, after hesitating for a moment, they clenched their teeth before they completely absorbed the Nirvana seals from Shuiying and the rest. While they were absorbing the Nirvana seals, Qin Qian on the large tree also knitted his brows slightly. His hands, which were placed behind his back, were gently lowered. Quite a number of people present felt their hearts tightened when they saw his action. It was rumored that Qin Qian was the strongest individual in the ancient battlefield. Could it be that he was going to attack now? This video will end here.